Hello my friends, and welcome to a new format. This will be called Truth News, and I will be covering the important things that happen that affects our daily lives, that could affect our daily lives, but also gamer-oriented stuff, what's happening with propaganda in gaming, the type of ideologies that they're trying to push in, and that can be woke stuff or satanic stuff. And I will talk about it in this program, but I will also be recommending games that I think they are good, and it will all kind of relate to each other with the topics in my broadcast. I will have articles posted in the description. When I cover a certain topic, it will only be some summary of it and what my opinions are, and so you can check it for yourself. Watch out, the articles sometimes have a certain bias, so you will have to look at it from your own looking glass. So we will be starting with Call of Duty, the new Call of Duty Black Ops 6. Apparently it has a non-binary character that you can play as, part of the woke propaganda and pushing of LGBTQ alphabet people propaganda into games, getting people and young people used to it more and more. In this picture, this advertisement conveniently says the truth lies. I don't know what the context behind this is, but the truth is the truth. The truth is the truth, and it's objective. There is no such thing as they, them. But here we go. Volta Rossi is an enigma who left the comfort of aristocracy to forge a new name as a human intelligence specialist. The character's origin was purposely left open-ended, having it to the user to decide their birthplace and gender. For gender options, gamers could select male, female, non-binary, or classified if non-binary is not good enough for these idiots. And even the robot has pronouns. An image of a robot in the game that had he, him pronouns on the character select screen. This is ridiculous. We're giving pronouns to tin cans now. It's a great world for gaming. You guys sometimes ask me why don't I do games exposed anymore? Well, it's because of this stuff. The games are lame. I used to like games a lot. I was a big gamer. I cared about all the new releases. Like, it used to be cool, you know. You would go on GameSpot or in these gaming news places in the 2000s, and you would check the new games because it was all badass games waiting for you. But now it's only this stuff with non-binary stuff. So look, I maybe am superficial, and maybe there's a lot of games that are still okay, but look at this. So like the two main games for this type of material, for the war enthusiasts, Call of Duty and Battlefield, they've both been spotted doing woke propaganda in them. So it's just not the same feeling of gaming being great. It's a bunch of propaganda now. So I have to point it all out. Of course, you can still enjoy the game. You can still go on multiplayer and do crazy things. Well, not so many crazy things, because you will be punished for saying politically incorrect things in the voice chat. And the whole thing with these games, or if you went into the chat room or in the voice chat, was that you were being also allowed to express the funny, kind of nerd, politically incorrect stuff that we say. It doesn't mean that we're serious, it's just in the moment, so I don't know why it's such a big problem. But you can still shoot stuff and have fun in it, I guess. What is not so fun is the real world right now, especially between Ukraine and Russia. The conflict still is very, very strong, and we will look at it through the perspective of this live interactive map that I found. which does a pretty good job at updating everything daily. So as we can see, we have it selected 27th of October, and you can even go on back in time and see the present, because you know the Western press. So I'm not a Russian fan or something. The history of my country with Russians is not that good. I do like the Russian people when it comes to art, or you know, I like to watch Stalker. I like to watch Stalker from the 70s. I like to read Roadside Picnic. I like what Dmitry Glukhovsky has written with the Metro science fiction books. Just anything that is creative, really. And I have some friends there, and it's all good, you know. Have to separate the people from the state. Now, the state, I don't like that much, but you can have your own opinion of this. I'm just saying that if it seems that I am biased to the Russian side, well, I'm not. It just will seem so because that's what's happening on the front line. And what's happening is that the Russians are slowly winning. So the Western press is made a big deal of the Kursk operation, which we can see here. Now, Kursk is this, but this is the region. Let me show you what happened. So, if we go right now, we're on the 27th of October. They're just holding a small region, which is shortening every day. So, if we go, when was the launch of this operation? I believe somewhere around here. We're gonna go to August 28th, maybe. Yeah, somewhere there. So they had significant territory, right? Because they pushed with all they had. But and then throughout September, kind of started losing territory. And if we go right now to October, we will see that it's further shrunk their control in the Kursk area. So let's go back to August 28th. Look at how much territory they had, and they were bragging so much on TV with this great success, so that they can get more money because oh, the victory, we have Ukrainian victories. So they were boasting on TV. They're like, yes, Ukraine, yes, you know. But in reality, it was just a temporary thing. And if we go now, we see how smaller this area will continue to become. It's very interesting, this map called liveuamap.com. A lot of reports are coming from the Ukraine General Staff of Armed Forces. I don't see much from the Russian side, but you know, this is enough to make an idea. So here's how you're gonna look at it. So if, for example, you click on this event, it will tell you that the air defense worked in Sumy, and it managed to get some missiles or some drones. Here it says that it killed some drones, right? If they're Ukrainian, if it's a Ukrainian news, it will say, oh, look, the Ukrainians are destroying everything that Russia throws at them. They're so great at it, right? But they're not reporting on the fact that this Kursk region gets smaller and smaller. They only report the, you know, but the reality might be that the air defense didn't even work that well. You have to take everything with a grain of salt, but it is telling you also that the Russians have a lot of resources. Because they may say, oh, Russians don't have enough resources, they can barely fight. But meanwhile, if you look at the map, you see that they have all kinds of attacks every day, you know. Just look, Russian aviation conducted their strikes in all these territories. So look at all these airstrikes just from today. And this is a large area. I don't know if you know, but it's large. So they are currently losing in Kursk, and they are putting pressure. So that's the area where the Ukrainians was like, oh, we are Ukraine, we are strong. But in reality, the entire Eastern Front is a story of Russian conquest. A slow conquest, but you know, it's proving that it's not how the West is reporting that either, because they're saying that Russians are just throwing bodies at the Ukrainians, which shows that, you know, they would like to think that Russia has no tactics and are just throwing people at them. But no, it's not true. They are slowly conquering, and they make sure that they stabilize the region before they push even forward in a very methodical way, so they don't lose much men. They are maneuvering very well, and then they are creating cauldrons, which then they close. So for example, here, right, in Toretsk, it was a slow advance. It was a slow advance in Toretsk. If we go to June, let's go to June, and then we go somewhere here, and we see that they were nowhere near, right? Because they had a lot of defenses going on here. So you can't just overnight take this, you know, you have to take it very methodical, slowly, you know, day by day, try to push a little more. And here we go, then starting to pierce through the urban area here at Zalizne, and then going through more and more, you know, slowly going around, encircling, and eventually getting to where we are now, where they almost control the whole thing. They just need to control this, and then the objectives have been done. So they're also, if you notice, the Russians, they always like to encircle. So they also attacked through New York. Well, this is the Ukrainian New York. And, you know, if we go back in time, we see, so how do you get, so this was the main point of attack, the Toretsk, right? So how do you do that? You can't just go from one direction, because that is not ideal. So here's what they started. They started with infantry. They started to attack New York slowly, and you know, encircle this, you know, get more territory, and then when ready, so not in a ridiculous way, but when ready, they started to get into New York. And look at it in mid-September. They also kind of closed the gaps between this attack and this attack, and joined up forces to ultimately control this whole area. So it's very precise. It's not like the Western press says, which is that Russians are outdated and stupid. It's not the case at all. And that's what they're doing all across the front line. Look at this. The advance on Pokrovsk. Well, Mironhrao and Pokrovsk. Really good place to set up a defense. If they get this, after that, there's only villages and some cities, but like not as packed as this. This was a good defense. It's a good defense spot. So if they manage to get this, then they can close this whole area. They can close the whole thing. So I'm not saying that this is like I'm happy for what's happening to Ukraine. I'm not happy about what's happening to Ukraine, and in fact I wish that Zelensky would just, you know, negotiate and stop the war. So here's what happened in Pokrovsk region. If we go to June, there's nothing, right? Not much, at least. So if we go to April, I guess that's they started planning this whole advance on this region. And then let's go to June. They successfully did so. And now we go to August, and they also were successful with the Toretsk thing and the New York advance. And look how close they are now. Look how close they are to their objective. The Russians are serious, and they use combined arms, they use artillery, they use missiles from their planes. Jets are able to fire very powerful missiles. They use very strong artillery, which they have an infinite amount of shells. And they have powerful infantry that keeps pushing everywhere. And now they got help also from North Korea. So, you know, good luck with those brainwashed warriors. Good luck. That's all I can say. Nothing much happened in the southern border except for the usual airstrikes. So here's the thing. The Russians are holding this area. They don't want to push right now. That's the only reason why they are not pushing. They are waiting for their eastern flank bodies to close this whole thing. And then once they reach this area, once it's all closed, then they will push north. And then it will be a whole march to Kiev. And guess what? It's working. I mean, it's slow. Maybe it'll last another 5 years, but it's working, you know. So it's best for everyone's interest to just negotiate something and stop the war. Now, as I'm in Romania, so like I'm right here. I'm right here, guys. Will I feel not so good if the Russians control Ukraine? Probably. It's not gonna be great to feel Russia breathing down your neck with a puppet country. But would I prefer that to an all-out escalation of the whole NATO fighting Russia? Any day. Any day. There's no reason for all of us to be sent to war. And, you know, you might be feeling like a hero. And they're like, oh, I can't wait to kill Russians. Yeah, but you don't know how it is in war. In war, it's crazy. You know, you get into a building, you're trying to hold something, and then, you know, next thing you know, you get an Iskander missile to your face, and you didn't even see it. You know, you get artillerized to hell, you get blown up by jet missiles. You know, you got some people think Russians are fighting with old Soviet technology, and yeah, that's true. They do use that, but so do the Ukrainians. They use the old T-64s or whatnot, and it doesn't matter. You know, the real thing is that Russia has everything to counter the Western technology. Maybe not at an elite level. Like, I'm not sure if the T-90 Russian tank is the best tank on the market. Maybe the Americans have something way better, but that doesn't matter. The thing is, Russians can produce so many T-90s, it's unbelievable. So it doesn't matter if you're able to take one, if 10 more will pop up, you know? It's hard to fight with Russians, and if you're just an infantry person, look, you're gonna have to face aviation, artillery, tanks, drones. They didn't used to do this whole drone warfare thing 3 years ago, but guess what? They adapted and now they produce a lot of drones. Everything you can think of. The Fab 3000 missile is no joke. It's a thermobaric explosion that will burn you from within. It's not fun. Even if we look in the past, if we look in the Cold War, you know, you will see that there was a counter to everything that the West had. Russians had a counter, and you can even see that in video games, such as WARNO, which is a great video game that I am playing now. And yes, we see some Abrams tanks here, and you know, guess what? The Russians also had their tanks, the T-80s. Is the Abrams better? Yes. But did the Russians have anti-tank weapons? Yes. They had the Concourse anti-tank missile, which could be installed on a car, on a truck, on a regular truck, and if the Concourse missile, you fire a bunch of them from some trees, they're hidden in the trees, and you get the tank will explode. You know, they had helicopters with anti-tank capabilities, just how the Americans had their own Apache attack helicopter, so did the Russian had the Mi-24, if I'm not mistaken. Black Hawks that would bring the troops in a very well-planned maneuvering to get into some buildings fast and then rush a certain objectives. Well, guess what? The Russians had their own, and they had the aviation division. Russian had their own, And with the Mi-8T, they would also, maybe it's not as cool looking as the Black Hawk helicopter from the Americans, but you know, it does the job, brings troops to an area, and they had the possibilities to do some of the same tactics. The West, you know, had their artillery with the howitzers. Well, guess what? The Russians also had their own. So the West had MLRS, which was able to launch a ton of rockets on a target with precision. Well, guess what? The Russians had the Grad, which the Grad is not able to be so precise as an MLRS, but it's capable to do a lot of damage, and it's cheaper to make. So if you have a bunch of Grads like this, pam 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 pam, and then fire hundreds of rockets, it's gonna be effective, and they can produce those rockets. They could produce those rockets then, and they can produce it now, and they have newer variants of those technologies now. So fortunately there wasn't a world war in the 80s, and hopefully we don't have one now. But we do have proxy wars between Ukraine and which represents the West through all this help that they're getting from NATO, and Russia, which is you know, powerful entity, and which signed a new pact of friendship, of helping each other with even with troops, now with North Korea. And who else? Who knows who else might join in the future? So this is the situation with the eastern front of Ukraine. They are losing slowly to a very tactical Russia. They have a lot of manpower. The Ukraine is struggling with manpower, and they're just plucking people off the streets and sending them to war. And sometimes they're even wasting their own elite divisions, as we have seen in the retreat of Avdiivka. They used Azov Brigade, a very elite brigade, to hold the Russians as they were evacuating the city. Well, they could have evacuated earlier and not have losses in their Azov elite brigade, and use them for something more, for something better. I don't know many details with these things, but I hope the little that I know helps you understand the situation. Moreover, the Russians are starting to use cavalry. Well, not horses, of course, but they're using motorbikes, guys. They are using surprise attacks with groups of motorbikes when attacking a position. They're cheap to make. You know, it's better to surprise an enemy with that than to bring a bunch of armor and have it destroyed. There's a very good video done on this subject by a channel called History Legend. And the most recent video from History Legends is this one, about why being a US infantryman during World War II was hell. So this goes to show that not only the Russians were throwing men like cannon fodder in World War II, but also the Americans did the same. Colonel George A. Taylor, 1st Infantry Division, one of the best American divisions at the time. The problem with these replacements is that they aren't given time to learn. We lose them almost as fast as we can get them. They don't last long. So there was a situation with replenishing divisions back then. There was an individual based replacement system, so they wouldn't pull back divisions to rest. Instead, they would replace individuals. So they ended up replacing the whole division with inexperienced soldiers, and they would die the next day. You know, they'd have to replace them constantly, and everyone would die. It's just how it is. It was a horrible reality, and that is explained by some of these generals and from the American forces at that time. So you can watch this video. It's very nicely edited, very well explained. The Normandy meat grinder and other situations, certain general Patton, Hurtigen Forest Nightmare, and then the Battle of the Bulge. It's crazy. By the end, when they actually got into Germany, most of the veterans died. They were sending in people who were already injured but just recovered, and they were sending them back to the front together with inexperienced soldiers. And in Germany there was another meat grinder. So he explains it, and he brings numbers and quotes from generals and officers. Very good channel, History Legends. I check. He doesn't upload every day. He uploads one time in a month, and usually it's a really good video, which with a lot of good insight into what is happening. And so now we have these objectives being rushed by motorbike units, which is kind of a new thing. Bikes are cheap, you know. A bike is cheaper than an armored car, and it's harder to get you with the anti-tank stuff. So, you know, if you have a javelin or something, you can try to stop a tank, but in the case of, you know, 30 motorbikes coming at your building, you can't do much. You know, they're just gonna rush, and they will attack your building or your trench or whatever. Supported by artillery, because they don't go without cover. They fire artillery to pin down whatever it is they're attacking, then they stop the attack, and by that time you're already surrounded by motorbikes with crazy Russians on them. So if you want to be updated with this situations on the ground, you will eventually learn the places, like for example this Vovchansk region. I regularly check it, but nothing much is happening. Just a fierce battle. It's going on for months. They're not able to pierce through here, the Russians, but maybe they just don't want to completely go through yet. Now, like I said, the priorities lie in these regions like Pokrovsk and Toretsk and Kruchliakivka. Yeah, try to say that. Kruchliakivka, where they already reached the river. So they are coming, like the orcs, except with interesting tactics and adapting to modern warfare. So that's all I wanna say for this. You can watch this too, from the north to the east to the south. You can watch all day. Interesting updates. All these updates are sourced, and you can check a YouTube channel called Military Summary if you want a more balanced source report, where there's a lot of stuff coming from the Russian side as well. Now we have also, unfortunately, another big conflict happening right now with Palestine and Israel, but it's expanded to Iran, and yesterday there was a big missile attack in the capital of Iran and surrounding regions. See here, we can see the sources and the different things that happened on the ground. The Iranians basically say that they have managed to stop a lot of the missiles. Israel says that they have managed to hit a lot of the military infrastructure of Iran. You can hover over the different missiles to see what the targets were. As we can see here, they were targeting missile manufacturing and preparation center, Falak Barracks in Bidegan, the Air Force Logistics Center of Sepah, and Imam Ali Barracks in Bidegan. So, you know, attacking Iran, kind of a bold move. Of course, they say it's in response to the Iran missile attack on the beginning of this month, where they fired around 200 missiles. So Israel also is replying with their own 180 to 200 missiles, but you know, this can escalate things further. Iran can go even more crazy, at which point maybe all war will break out in the region, and Israel will of course want United States to get involved and put troops on the ground. And you know, the situation that we have between Russia, Ukraine, and the situation that we have between Israel and Palestine, but not only that, now with Iran, Syria, and Lebanon, it can explode into some kind of third world war. And it's tragic, and we don't need this right now. There is, however, one guy who is running for the American presidency right now, and even if you or I are not particular fans or something like this, he has claimed that he will try and do anti-war things. He is the guy that, you know, won't send a ton of stuff to Ukraine, or will try to negotiate something between Ukraine and Russia, and probably won't join a war in Iran. So yesterday we also had an interesting podcast between Joe Rogan and Donald Trump, a 3-hour discussion. Joe Rogan, as always, is good at asking questions, you get to know the personality, you get to have certain reactions and responses that you don't hear every day. For example, if you do go to a Trump rally, all you hear is the same lines being repeated over and over. So in a podcast like this, maybe you get to listen to something else. I'm not saying like Donald Trump is a hero. I'm not one of the QAnon people. I am saying, however, that he is a better choice to what Kamala Harris and the current administration is doing, which is just fueling war. So they're trying to stop him by whatever means necessary. You know, for years now, even Project Veritas, a very nice channel, infiltrated Google. I can't find the video right now. They probably removed it, but they did infiltrate Google, and they got one of the important people there to actually say on a hidden camera that they were doing everything that's possible to not have a Donald Trump event happen again. So they're trying to not, stop him from getting elected by all means necessary. So that means on the mainstream platforms, except for Twitter, which was bought by Elon Musk, which now joins in with Donald Trump. They're even starting to use assassination attempts, and also, as we've seen, and they're also using weather warfare, sending multiple hurricanes in a region that is known to vote for Trump. And there's a lot of people who died in Hurricane Helen, stuff that's not being reported. So that's a whole rabbit hole if you want to join it. But of course, the fact-checking places say that all these claims are baseless. They're saying that the scientists, the experts, are saying that this technology doesn't exist. It's not proven to exist, and they proceed to discredit everyone who tries to say that hurricanes Helen or Milton were engineered. Now, Milton was a bit softer compared to Helen, and that's good. But that's probably due to a lot of people praying to God, because initially it was predicted to be just as bad as Helen, I believe. So very interesting discussion between Joe Rogan and Donald Trump. You can go watch it. Just drinking water from my traditional Romanian mug. Ceramics is the way to go. Stop drinking from plastic stuff. So again, war is terrible. If it means electing someone that might stop this insanity, I think we should do that. I will talk now how there's a video game that kind of predicts this future World War III in a science fiction setting. The game is called The Forever Winter, and it plays like this: the West versus the East in all-out war. Western Europe and America and South America versus the Russians and the Asians. You got Europa, which represents the West, and you got Eurasia, which represents the Central Asia with some parts from Eastern Europe. I don't know why they call it Eurasia, because Eurasia is just the entire thing, Europe plus Asia. But, developers of this game maybe are not, they missed a class or two in geography. You got the Euroska, which are the Russians and some former Slavic countries and parts of Africa. The Europa faction is depicted as having crap technology, outdated technology, but that's because it's just traditional technology. Whereas the Eurasian faction is super advanced. The Chinese are using biotechnology, so they developed monsters that are kind of beyond just a regular tin can technology. And the Euruska, which also have a biotech engineering, but I've also seen in the game, I've seen T90s from today. I don't know why you would see that, the T90s from today, but I guess it's how it's, you know, military technology. They're still using T-64s now. Ukrainians and the Russians, they still use the old tanks, and they still find uses for them even in modern warfare. Now in this game you play as the scavenger, so you're not even part of these factions. Play as the scavenger and just try to find water and resources for yourself to survive, and for the group of people, the small group of people that you're a part of. It is an interesting video game, whether it is predictive programming or just a prediction or just science fiction writing. That is for you to decide. I don't think it's predictive programming, because like if it was made by the Illuminati, they wouldn't get they wouldn't write stuff like Eurasia, which is kind of shows the lack of geography understanding of the developers. Like Illuminati developers are smarter than that, and the game is early access and has lots of bugs. So if it was a game made by the Illuminati, it would be a bit better than that. You know, this is of course this is an independent studio, and they have made a science fiction game that I consider to predict a possible future. And the artwork is good in the video game. It can't see it in this particular article, but you do see it if you play the game. And the art is inspired in some maps from the dystopian surrealist art done by Zdzisław Beksiński. Beksiński from Poland, which has some very, very interesting looking dystopian buildings like this. I believe this looks like Notre Dame, but stylized in a surreal depiction. He has these very interesting landscapes and building architecture. It's very organic looking destruction over here. So make of that what you will. Forever Winter, early access game. Interesting prediction about the future. Also WARNO, a good game that I recommend, which as you play with realistic divisions, it has a lot of infantry divisions from the NATO or the Russians, the Soviet stuff. So in this game they have wonderful looking maps with pretty good graphics, and you can see all kinds of units that are realistic. See, that's a Russian My there, My 24, I believe. You see the Abrams American tanks. You see the T-80s from the Russians. You see artillery, all kinds of artillery, all kinds of things you can play as. It's fantastic. You see the reality of war, but portrayed through a video game. You can play single player or multiplayer. You have to balance out these forces to be able to win. And it's kind of like a rock, paper, scissors game that we saw a nice anti-air machine gun. But there's also the Iglas for the Russians or the Stingers for the Americans. It's very interesting to play as both sides. I usually play as both sides to get a perspective on what technology each of them had. Another video game that is coming soon, and this time from the developers from Ukraine, a STALKER II, Heart of Chernobyl, which is a very beautiful game, and it continues the legacy of the first STALKER games in the 2000s with Chernobyl exclusion zone gone wrong, with also some, I mean, it's already wrong, with Chernobyl nuclear power plant exploding, and involving also some paranormal experiments that after the explosion bring not only horrible radiation to the world, but also mutants and all kinds of artifacts that are special and give people abilities, or you can just study them. And so various factions are interested in acquiring these artifacts, from the Russian military to scientists to regular people who are just trying to go out there, find an artifact, sell it, and bring the money back to their families so that they can live with a good quality of life. But it's very risky to go into the zone. You'll have to face these factions that are at war with each other, various factions, and you've got mutants of all types to deal with that can even attack your mind with psi attacks. It is a very interesting game, a very open world game. With if you would like to go through the Chernobyl exclusion zone, that's kind of like stuck in time, a place stuck in time. If you'd like to visit and see these interesting environments and also play a badass action game, then Stalker 2 is the choice for you. If you like not only to shoot stuff, but also to manage your inventory wisely, to find artifacts, to hunt for whatever you would want, this and also have access to some science fiction weapons. Not many, but there's a really interesting Gauss rifle. I'm curious to see if they have anything else. The only part that sucks about this development is that they have a big bias towards this current conflict between Ukraine and Russia, and they have banned the Russian audience from being able to purchase this game. As you can see, there's a support Ukraine now situation. Well, okay, you can have that, but at least don't modify the lore of the video game itself. And guess what? They did just that. They removed all the Russian characters from the game. They removed also the Russian language from the game, so now it's all in Ukrainian. I mean, I understand them, you know, they've been bombed and stuff, but still, you're dealing with the lore of a video game that happens in a certain science fiction time period in the 2000s, when the Russian military do go to the Chernobyl exclusion zone and you know, have operations there. So, you know, just removing that because of the current political and war situation is kind of silly, if you ask me. And moreover, if you're not selling this game to Russians, you are also taking away the chance of having more friends on the other side, because there are a lot of Russians who are fans of this game, and you know, if you want them to be more understanding towards Ukraine, then yes, allow them to buy the video game. The gamers are not people who want war in real life. The gamers could create a community between them and say, hey, I refuse to enlist in the war. You know, I don't want to attack a fellow gamer who likes the same thing as me from a different country. You know, but I guess they lost that opportunity. When it comes to art, people who create and who enjoy art, those are not the people who create wars. The people who create wars are the politicians and the leaders. And we are just the little people who are sent into war. Why would you want to not sell, you know, someone who is not responsible for the war? You don't want to sell them the game. That could actually end up making him your friend, and they would stop him from enlisting into the war. Well, I guess it's their decision. I will be getting this video game. I don't care where the games are made. If it's a Ukrainian game, it's a good game, I will play it. If it's a Russian game, it's a good game, I will play it. So like it was the case with Atomic Heart. You know, everyone was like, well, don't buy this Russian game because they're bad. No, I will buy it because it's a good game. It has good artwork in it. Of course, these are modern games. You will need a good machine to run it. And I have a good machine. I have the professional. I have the Ryzen 7800 X3D, which is the best CPU right now for gaming. Even despite Intel releasing a new product called Intel Core Ultra 9 285 It is right now underperforming even my CPU from AMD, which costs less money. This new one from Intel costs almost $600, and mine cost almost $500. And this one uses 250 watts of power, while mine uses significantly less power. And there are people doing benchmarks on YouTube, and for example, Nick Tech here shows how the new Intel Ultra 9 285K underperforms their own CPU that they had before, which is i9 14900K, by a significant amount, and my processor is also above everyone else. So check this video if you want, from Nick Tech, talking about the latest Intel CPU. Now, I'm not a specialist in this IT stuff at all. I just want something that works, and right now AMD works really good for me. I also have the 7900 XT graphics card, so works well for me. If Intel works for you, then I'm happy for you. So not trying to make this into an AMD versus Intel warfare. I just wanted to point out that in my news section that the Intel Core Ultra 9 seems to not be as good as what already exists on the market, and that my CPU is the best, but we'll see what happens in the future. Anyways, this was the first edition of Truth News here on WWIII YouTube channel. Let me know what you think, and if you consider this information useful, let me know. If you want to join into the discussion, join my Discord. If you also want to give me ideas for Truth News, and feel free to also support the channel if you want. There are ways to do so in the description, such as buying the music that I compose, or sending in a monthly donation through Patreon, or a one-time donation through PayPal. I'll try to be more constant with the videos on this channel, because these are topics I really care about, and I think you do too, since you are watching this video and since you have reached the end of this video. Once again, thank you for watching the video, and I will see you guys next time. This is WWIII signing out.